following show is for entertainment purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of Empire Media LLC, its subsidiaries, affiliates, sponsors, and advertisers.
Can they hear me? They hear me live out there. Next beat. That ain't the beat I want.
Those was wood.
Another beat. Right another
there.
beat. Nope. Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope. That's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up. Oh, or turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can you make it louder than my headphones? Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, natty ghosts, feelers, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working a hustling to get it, a get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater, watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bang out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Bond's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby.
Welcome back, podcast fans. How you guys doing out there in podcast world? Perhaps you're a podcast fan. Perhaps you're a Deep Issues fan. We're here to give you both. So, yay us. We're coming at you tonight with webisode number 49J. I am your host, Josh Houslander. With me, as always, behind the controls is Mr. Adam Hernandez and our Deep Issues expert, Ed Zaharsky. It's day 4770 in the search for Tim Chevelday. Tonight's issue is Project Bluebeam. How's it going, everybody?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good, man. I got some fuzz going on in my earphones.
It's okay.
Okay,
It's okay.
we're good. They're not hearing it.
No, you're good.
Cool, cool. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. I'll rock it Nick style, old school, and not have headphones on and then not be able to hear anything all night. Keep saying what?
What?
But hey, like we said, Project Bluebeam tonight's Deep Issue. Maybe you're familiar with Project Bluebeam to some degree, and that's why you tuned in. Or maybe you're thinking, what the hell is Project Bluebeam? Project Bluebeam is basically, and we're going to break it down into much further than this, but is the idea of a false flag, alien and or religious movement, visitation, attack, ever planned by the government, basically in order to subjugate the people, in essence, or unify, air quotes, unify the people or subjugate them. Anything you want to start out with? Ed, Adam, anybody? Would you want to throw out some of your feelings now or save that for later? How do you want to dig into Project Bluebeam here tonight?
Well, I guess we should just kind of start at the bottom and then work our way to the top here. But Project Bluebeam is basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but it is a conspiracy theory basically revolving around the idea that NASA is trying to start a basically offshoot religion to help control the world. And they are going to try and achieve this. See, this is what's interesting about this is because whenever we do one of these types of shows,
mm-hmm.
in some circumstances they end up tying in a bunch of other things that we've talked about. And Project Bluebeam is another one of those instances where it can tie in a bunch of different things that we've talked about. And Ed, you brought something to our attention, as we were kind of going over things before the show when you were talking about, the religion show that we did about the Bible and mm-hmm. Jesus, which technically wasn't a deep issues cast, but
episode of the X-Cast, nonetheless.
It was an episode of the X-Cast, yes. But you brought in you mentioned the religious aspect to it, and I'm going to let you explain that when we get to it, just because you'll probably do a better job at it than I am. and it was your thought, but NASA trying to create this new world order based on basically a monotheistic religion that kind of encompasses a bunch of different gods that could be, the monotheistic God of
Abraham.
Yeah, God of Abraham, yes. Yeah. And they merge it into an antichrist. And they help, or they try to get followers by basically staging a bunch of false flag instances or occurrences around the world, whether it's an alien invasion, an earthquake, a fake rapture, so on and so forth.
Holographic.
In holographic form, yes.
Are going to be a huge part of this as well. And Adam mentioned NASA. That is definitely, usually in the forefront of these things is the NASA involvement. But it's NASA. It could be NASA. It could be United Nations, U.S. government in conjunction with some of their allies. The HARP Center up in Alaska, CERN. All these different things are, can be potentially tied in with this specific theory, or not tied in. You can. Just because you maybe prove that, oh no, NASA's not there, well, it doesn't mean that it's not there, because U.S. military, Air Force have definitely had potential ties to this as well. And Adam also mentioned that this could tie into other things we've actually had full deep issues casts about, or just that have mentioned in the past, some of the biblical aspects, like he said, Illuminati, NWO, MK Ultra. All of these things have potential tie-ins to the Project Bluebeam conspiracy. The one thing that really sets apart Project Bluebeam, or it's also, I've heard it referred to as Project Firesign, and Ed, you had another one too that you had said.
Project Greenstar, although I think that maybe was more on the telepathy aspect of it that is often cited.
Okay. So there are other names for it. There, as far as I know, there is no direct military government reference to a thing called Project Bluebeam. There are many references to potential things that could be like Project Bluebeam, but as far as I can tell, the words Project Bluebeam are kind of a made-up conspiracy thing. So that's the conspiracists' terminology. That's their verbiage used to describe this potential false flag attack. We want to look into this further in a lot of ways. Sergei Monast is a guy. He's supposed to be one of the big authorities on this out of Quebec. I don't speak French though, and most of what he says is in French.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He looks a little crazy too.
Yeah, he looks a little David Icke-ish.
Yeah,
yeah. You could see why people wouldn't buy into this after you see him.
Somebody that doesn't seem quite as crazy is Dr. Carol Rosen. Have you guys ran into her at all?
I haven't.
Okay, Dr. Carol Rosen claims to it. Well, actually, she doesn't claim to. She did definitely work with a Dr. Werner von Braun, who was kind of like known as one of the guys that helped bring rocket technology to the U.S., basically. He died in 1977. These are both aerospace engineers, worked for Fairchild. That's how they met each other. They did other various things as well, but they met each other as aerospace engineers with PhDs working for Fairchild. So these people have legit credentials and are fairly respectable in other walks of life. He was dying of cancer in 1974 when she met him. And he pulled her aside and said that they had a plan to weaponize space. That the military-industrial complex was trying to come up with reasons to be able to spend trillions of dollars to weaponize space. And she thought he was crazy at first. And what he said back then in the 70s is he said, he died in 77, and she started talking about this in, verified anyway on tape in, mid-90s, basically. So some of the things you can say, well, by then, why'd she hold on to it for so long? But some of the stuff is pretty prophetic, whether she was making it up or not. But according to Von Braun, he said that right now they're trying to say that the enemy is the Russians. That's why we need to come up with all this tech. He said then they're going to say the terrorists. Then they're going to move up to small country crazies, was what he said. Or, rogue states, as we call them now. He said then they're going to talk about asteroids. He said, and he said this, she said this is what he kept pressing to her. He said, and the final card that they're going to play is the aliens. They're going to finally say that we need it to protect ourselves from the aliens. And he said, and it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. We don't need any of this stuff. And even then, she claims he was talking, suitcase bombs and things like that. And he said, doesn't matter. None of this space tech can do it. They want to do it because it's expensive, and they need to be able to pump it through.
I have a picture too of Sergei Manas. If you're watching us on Facebook Live or Periscope or YouTube, there he is.
That's a recent picture too. He looks even crazier now than he used to. That's not the picture I saw of him earlier. He looked a little loony, but he looks even loonier now. But hey, that doesn't mean he's not right. Doesn't mean he is right either. Von Braun also claimed that, and Dr. Rosen claimed that their company, their portion of it, was tasked with creating a war in the Middle East. And that the space-based weapons that they were claiming that they were going to need to create to do this, that those things already existed. They were just trying to come up with ways to justify why they needed them and how they're going to divert more funds to them. She seemed to be one of the less crazy people out there, talking about this particular thing. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know what to say necessarily about some of this stuff, because it does sound crazy. I mean, this is one of these things that it really, it sounds very crazy.
Can we go over the steps too, Jeff?
Sure, absolutely.
Because just real quick here.
No, that's a good one. We should do that before what I was going to say.
Yeah, because I think it's important that because there are steps. There is a methodology to this, and step one is, we mentioned the earthquake, and an earthquake is supposed to happen to kind of it's to break down any archaeological knowledge that we have in the world, and that there would be these new fake discoveries that kind of explain and debunk some of the current religious doctrine that we have.
Mm-hmm. And break apart some of our known history.
Exactly. Step two would be the space show, as they call it, where you would have holographic laser projections beamed all over the planet. And from here you would have, the gods will basically merge into one, and that one god would be the Antichrist.
Isn't it more, though, that the human leader who takes charge is technically the Antichrist, though?
I think so.
You're correct.
Yeah. I think that's what what it's alluding to there is
this, whatever being they show
Yeah.
isn't the Antichrist. That's just the fake. The fake being, if you will.
Well,
and whoever takes over.
It may even just be a human who is elected essentially to lead us against them.
Right. Either lead us with them or
elected.
against them, or protect us from them, or unify us with them.
Mm-hmm.
Step three would be the telepathic electronic two-way communication that would make people think that the god is speaking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be obviously fake. They'd be using extreme low frequency radio waves to do this.
Something that is in the currently in the United States Patent Office is is a machine that can supposedly do this.
Okay, and step 4, they say, has 3 parts to it. So that first part is making humanity think an alien invasion is about to occur in every major city, making the Christians think the rapture is about to happen, and then the third part of step 4 is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fiber optics, coax power, and telephone lines to penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances that will by then all have a special microchip installed. So those are the 4 steps to this.
And I guess the question you would ask is why? Why would the government do this? Why would whomever is, behind this, why would they do this? I guess the answer would be they would do this to create chaos. So they could then turn the systems against us. Civil liberties would no longer be a priority, and they could lead us into a one world government or a series of military dictatorships that would be, under martial law.
Is
in
it
essence.
the final synthesis of the New World Order?
Well, sure. Yeah, exactly. This is the end game, if you will. And when we talk about this, and this is something we mentioned when we talked about Illuminati, we talked about New World Order, we talked about the secret societies. We just try to lump them all in. I believe those were 3 different shows, actually. Basically, when we tried to break it down, when I remember before we asked, what's the difference between the NWO and the Illuminati? And because those aren't 2 warring factions, that is in essence kind of the same thing, but the NWO is the end game politically, governmentally. The Illuminati is the religion, if you will, of the NWO.
The leaders,
right.
And what was the opposite of the Illuminati again? Or not the opposite?
The Rosicrucians were a secret society,
but they weren't the opposite. They were a group trying to achieve New World Order.
In some ways, yes, but yeah, the Rosicrucians are supposedly the sworn enemy of the Illuminati. And when you mention that, I like that you mentioned that, Adam, because in essence, when you're talking about the creating chaos and sending world and upheaval, a lot of the tinfoil hats out there right now believe that the Illuminati or the secret societies, if you will, are in the middle of a civil war right now, and that tends to reflect worse forms of unrest when that's going on. So by that happening, if the Rosicrucians or whoever it may actually be, or the Illuminati, whoever it may actually be, if they're at war with each other, then this would be the type of thing, this would be like a great end game to throw off the power struggle, in essence.
Did we get into what Manas said the end of the steps would be? Like
no.
What happens at the end?
We did not.
Do you want me to
sure,
go into that? Because this is in his book.
His book is just called Project Bluebeam. By the way.
And he says in the 1994 lecture, he detailed what would happen afterwards. All people will be required to take an oath to Lucifer with a ritual initiation to enter the New World Order. Resistors would be categorized as follows. Christian children would be kept for human sacrifice or sexual slaves. Prisoners to be used as medical experiments. Prisoners to be used in living organ banks. Healthy workers in slave labor camps. Uncertain prisoners in the International Re-Education Center. Thence to repent on television and learn to glorify the New World Order. The International Execution Center. And an as of yet unknown 7th classification.
And basically, in essence, now that's Monast's kind of view on, his end game for Project Bluebeam. Other people aren't necessarily saying that about Bluebeam, but that is a traditional and classic end game for Illuminati. For this idea that it's backed by a Luciferian cause and that it's demonic in nature, and that they are, in essence, trying to do away with our modern religion and free thinking as it be, in essence. So that isn't, although you don't hear everyone talking about Project Bluebeam saying that again, that's not inconsistent with different Illuminati views, basically. Ed, this might be a good time for you to jump into some of what you were talking about before, your Book of Enoch. And
yeah, so as crazy as all this might sound, it actually kind of ties in biblically. And I guess let me just explain a little bit. And if you're not familiar with the Book of Enoch, basically, so Enoch was Noah's grandfather. And it's not included in the Bible. It's not canon, but it is referenced by a couple books in the Bible. It essentially tells the story. You don't really get much in the Old Testament of, what happened pre-flood. Adam and Eve were they were banished from the garden, and they populated the earth, and men grew wicked, and God had to destroy the entire earth with a flood. But
yeah, they don't give you too many specifics on why and what they did to be wicked.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, you know that men were evil, and basically almost everybody and everything was wiped out. The Book of Enoch essentially expounds on this a lot. It tells a story of how God sent the Watchers, and some of them basically came down and laid with women, and they made men evil and war against each other. And it basically tells this story of good and evil and angels, and essentially like the Nephilim, the giants, who basically this evil force that turned the men wicked and fought against the good men and angels, who essentially, the whole good versus evil struggle that was really the reason why God had to destroy everything, because they essentially just ruined everything on earth. And obviously somewhere in there, something, they have survived the flood, and they have continued on their ways and going in that same direction that they were in. And so one of the things would be is that obviously in the synthesis of the New World Order, this is all to stage this alien invasion to bring that about. But part of that is essentially is the bad guys wanting to be worshipped, essentially, okay, like Satan, Lucifer, essentially wanting to come back and essentially be God. And the Illuminati are kind of the Nephilim, or the descendants of them, essentially working towards that aim.
Okay, and in essence, they warn of this falling back into these wicked ways. Correct,
Yes.
in this and in other places, both canon and non-canon books of the Bible, mm-hmm, they talk about this idea that there will be people who try to bring this forth in the future once again.
Mm-hmm. And personally, I think it's going to be quite easily pulled off when, as Adam mentioned earlier, a lot of the Christians might think this is a rapture, and then you have this being come and basically rule over the earth, and a lot of people will think it's the second coming of Jesus, and you'll quite easily convert a large portion of the population just on that alone.
They talk a lot about how the main two groups that they really have, that they think they would have trouble with in switching them, because they are they're very set in their ways, and they're both religions that believe that you need to spread the word, and that being the Christians and the Muslims. Say that the Christians and the Muslims are the ones that really need to be convinced, in essence, because our doctrines are pretty well laid out. We have books that throw it down pretty easily, so they feel that they really need to fulfill this idea of a rapture, fulfill this idea of the second coming. And this brings me into, and we can jump back in that direction if you have more, but one of the things that there have been microcosm-esque instances where this has been talked about or perhaps even attempted in the past. One of them, speaking of the Muslims, is documented that during the Iraq War, they wanted to try to come up with an idea to have a holographic image where Allah came to the people of Iraq and told them that they need to overthrow Saddam Hussein.
And by the way, this was released by the very truth-telling Washington Post,
Right.
the very mainstream source on this. So
Absolutely, this is been reported in mainstream media that they did consider that.
You're talking about the United States government considered.
Yes.
Yep.
Projecting that.
The army wanted to do this.
Yep.
And to further their own gains of toppling Saddam Hussein.
In the article, they basically talk about how, and this is the 90s, mind you, we've had a couple decades since then. Back then, they had voice-changing technology or voice replication technology, more accurate, where essentially they could replicate any words with somebody's voice. I think it was like a general or somebody they had where they had him say something like the United States is being invaded, something that he wouldn't actually say, and was complete with his voice. They had the technology then to basically take and replicate that, along with the holograms, basically of Allah, whatever.
They say that with this technology, even then, that if you had 10 minutes of voice audio of someone speaking, that you could replicate their voice and have them say anything, completely anything you wanted. If you had, minimum, not even minimum, but, maximum 10 minutes of them speaking, they could do this. They also have the technology where, in essence, you can point this, it's almost like a gun, at someone, and you can speak directly to them. It actually led to whispers of people in Iraq saying, the U.S. has this crazy demonic technology where they can put voices in your head. In essence, that you see somebody on a ship from far away and you could pinpoint a sailor on that specific ship and say something to them. They actually mostly used it just to say, like, hey, get out of the way, your ship's going to get run over. It's basically what it was used for, but it became this thing that
got to test it out somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. That a lot of the Iraqis were really creeped out by it. This has been seen in other things too. There was what's the TV show? Paranormal something?
Paranormal Investigators?
Paranormal Activity? Was that a show?
That was a movie.
Is that a movie?
Were the demons in their bedroom? Is that the one you're going on?
It was. I thought it was a TV show, but it could have been a movie. They had a billboard for it in a big city, and as you walked under the billboard, this pumped stuff into your head, and it really freaked some people out. And it said, you're not just hearing this. This is just for you. It was really creepy thing. And then I guess you would kind of realize that, like, oh, this is something going on. But it really freaked a lot of people out because you're hearing this, and I'm not an expert on biology or anatomy by any means, but basically when a person hears something, the way our ears are built, you kind of know where it's coming from. It's coming from the left, the right, above, below. But with this thing, when it's pumped directly into the frequency of your ears, you don't know where it's coming from. And that whole just idea of not knowing where it's coming from really freaks you out. It can't help but freak you out, and it feels like there's voices in your head.
Yeah.
Basically.
Just think how intimidating that would be. You see some, gigantic flying saucer up ahead, and all of a sudden these thoughts end up in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's all fake, it'd be very hard not to believe something like that.
Right. And this is something, I was going to bring this up later in the show, and Adam and I kind of mentioned this before the show, before you got here to the studio, but it's one of these things, if you're a believer in Christ or in a different religion, or if you're a believer if you're somebody that believes that extraterrestrials could exist or very well may exist, if you're a believer in some of these things, I mean, it sounds silly, but what if one of those things really happens? Or like, what if Jesus comes back and we all think it's Project Bluebeam? What if aliens really do come down and we think it's Project Bluebeam? Yeah, I mean, are we going to be the underground rebellious conspiracists hanging out underground, really fighting against Jesus? I mean,
so it's been a while since I've seen it, so my memory's a little sketchy. But if you've seen the original series V.
A long time ago.
So basically the
one from the 80s.
Yeah, from the 80s.
I saw that as a kid. It scared the crap out of me. I watched a little bit of the series that came back, and I read Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, which all the V things are loosely based on Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke.
So in case people haven't seen it, basically the idea is these aliens come by, all of a sudden all these flying saucers are out in outer space, and eventually I think we send somebody up or they send somebody down, and we talk to their leader, and it turns out they're these humanoid looking people, and they come and they say they're going to basically cure all of Earth's ills and heal the sick and the wounded, and essentially everybody is kind of like, all right, they're coming here to save us essentially, but what they really were doing is taking our resources and eating people. They were essentially kidnapping them, and one of our people made their way up there and saw all these bodies basically just waiting to be devoured. And I tend to think that if something like that did happen, like in the show, there were people who kind of realized something's not right. This isn't. They're
not as nice as they say.
Sort of thing. Yeah, that you would still get that, but it could be quite convincing, especially if you're programmed to believe, hey, there's going to be a second coming of Jesus, and we just had this big destructive war or earthquake, and here he is coming to save us. I mean, I think that's why this has to be essentially the end game for any sort of new world order. Is what other sort of catastrophe or what else are you going to do to synthesize what's left to get it to that point?
Well, and there's been a lot of they would obviously need the media on their side
which they have
to tell people. And as we know, I mean, let's face it, you can like the media, you can think that they're not totally evil, but let's face it, the media doesn't tell us the truth anymore. I mean, they do not. I'm not sure that they ever did, but I know that their truth-telling has drastically gone down in my lifetime.
It's gone from bad to horrible.
Right. I mean, maybe exactly. Maybe it was never good. Now it's worse. Maybe it used to be good. Now it's bad. I don't know. Don't really care. I just know that it's gotten a hell of a lot worse in my lifetime, and I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But it's out there. So it would require the media to tell us things, and we would believe it. And there's no reason to believe that people wouldn't believe it, because they right now believe everything that they're told. In fact, what's strange is people think they're smart. People really do think they're smart. And if you ask people, do you trust the media? They're going to say no. I bet if you ask people in America, all around the world, not just Americans, all around the world, do you trust the media? I bet 75% of the people would say no. I bet people would say, no, I don't trust the media. Should you believe with everything the media tells you? No, of course you should. But the thing is, you do, though. You do. You people out there act like they don't believe it. They act like they are questioning it. But the truth is, when you see something on the 6 o'clock news, you believe it. You do believe it.
I think a lot of those people, when they say they don't believe the media, maybe don't believe a specific source. Like maybe they're a Democrat and they think Fox News is lying to them, or they're a conservative and they think CNN is lying to them.
But that's a huge part of it.
But they think that the truth between the two of them is out there somewhere, not realizing that it's all just spewing bullshit.
And I know people that I know probably a half a dozen to a dozen people that fit the exact category I'm about to say, and it goes both ways with this too. Like you just said, Ed. But I know a whole bunch of people who say, oh my God, Fox News is the worst. But then they'll even take it a further step and say, all cable news is garbage. So they're even throwing in the liberal side. But then they listen to, for instance, NPR, and they think that that's pure. And that everything you hear
I know people exactly like that.
That everything you hear on NPR's like
I know somebody who recently told me that he thinks NPR is the most objective news outlet.
Right. And I'm sorry. You can like NPR if you want. You can like CNN if you want. You can like Fox News if you want. I'm not telling you not to. But if you think that you're listening to NPR and that you're getting unbiased news, or news without an agenda, or that NPR doesn't have just as much of an agenda as MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or AM talk radio, then you ought to rethink your stance on some things, okay? And same with, and I'm not trying to pick on, NPR happens to be a liberal one. I'm not trying to pick on the liberals here, because if you think that oh my God, I would never listen to NPR, it's liberal nonsense, and then you just listen to AM talk radio and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh all day. No, you're no better. That's. And hey, I'm not telling you not to listen to these guys. I'm not telling you not to listen to NPR and take what you can from it, or not to listen to Sean Hannity and take what you can from it. But just
it can be hard, but I think you almost have to, with any of them, just realize there might be a grain of truth in what you're hearing, but it's probably not very accurate.
Right.
Even if it's something you agree with.
It's actually why I actually prefer biased journalism. I actually not prefer it over what would truly be unbiased.
Requires you to be critical of everything.
But there is no unbiased journalism. It does not exist at all. So I prefer listening to Fox News or NPR, somewhere, a thing that you actually know is biased one way or the other, so you can at least then judge off the known bias that you're going off of. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that even when you do that, you listen to Fox News and you think, well, I'm listening to conservative talk. But they're not conservative. They are like a populist progressive form of...
They're fake conservative.
Yeah, they are. They have this like, they're nationalist, they're populist, they're progressive, they're light right wing, if you want, if you want to call it that, but they're not conservative, and they're certainly not for liberty.
That's the sort of false dilemma that gets set up, is that sort of that's conservative. Let's knock that down.
Right. And same with if you're watching MSNBC, this idea that they're liberal. No, they're not really liberal. They're actually big time. They're socialists, really. They're populist, socialist progressives is what they are, and they're big government fanatics.
Still mention CNN. Adam's gonna.
I won't say anything about CNN. I don't like when we're saying this. I know. The running joke here in the studio is Adam always has CNN playing when we come in, and I can't stand it. I'm not a CNN fan either, but I actually don't put CNN anywhere near as bad as I put MSNBC. MSNBC to me is laughable. Where CNN, I feel like some of the people on there are like the true, like, no, I'm a journalist. I went to school for this. I feel like they're not. They're biased, but they're not biased ideologues. They're biased journalists, which isn't much better, but it might be a little.
What about Fox News? Fox News isn't that?
Dude, I just spent 5 minutes ripping on Fox News.
I know, but Fox News is the other side of it.
That's what I lumped Fox News and MSNBC there. So I'm actually, in some ways, saying Fox News is worse than CNN. I'm using Fox News as the example.
So you're saying CNN is the best, then?
No. I don't care. Sure.
There's it might even be 5 now, but there's 6 companies total that own 99% of all the media. It's all controlled,
right?
That's why it roughly tends to be all the same, and it's essentially the same thing almost on each side. You're going to have some catering to light conservatism on Fox News, and you're going to have catering to all the socialist, liberal, whatever on the other side. But a lot of times it's the same thing slanted, and neither of it gives you the truth.
Sure. And so much of the media such a huge majority of the media is so leftist that when people who feel that they lean right tune into Fox News and it is not completely bashing the right-wing segment, they view it as right-wing. But truthfully, I don't know that it really is. Honestly, to me, Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN have a lot more in common. Their ideologies have a lot more in common with each other than they do with my specific ideology. They could all be saying the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
As somebody who is I'm a liberty-loving federalist, basically. That is how I would probably describe my ideology. I'm not represented on any of those channels.
Case in point, how many things has WikiLeaks released in the last year or so that haven't even scratched the surface of any of these news channels? And say this scenario does happen. Say, there is some alien invasion, and maybe it's not even faked and it's real. Are you going to trust these sources that have continuously lied to you to all of a sudden tell you the truth about that?
And that's why it's so difficult. It really is. We've digressed a little bit from it, but I kind of like the digression.
You think?
Jump in wherever you'd like.
Who are you going to tune into when the invasion happens?
I think the whole thing is in large part bullshit.
What, the media part or the all Project Bluebeam?
I think people don't want to take responsibility for their own thinking. And I agree with that. And I think
the media doesn't want you to either.
And I think in some ways people hearken back to the media in that. They're like,
they do.
And they try to blame the media for that. They try to blame the media, I think, for their.
But if you're presented with a false dilemma, how are you supposed to?
I think the media gives you the reporting, and then from there, you make of it what you will. If you don't want to believe something, then don't believe it.
But do you agree that a lot of people in the media on both sides of the aisle that they present what they're saying as if it is unbiased journalism when it is in fact agenda-laden?
I think it's some. What you're asking is do you think that there's bias in anything, whether it's the media, whether it's whatever? And yes, there are certain circumstances where there is bias in the media. I'm not denying that. I mean, the people that give us the news are people, and people are flawed.
All intelligent people have bias.
Yes.
Well, but they very clearly have agendas, though. These companies are essentially sensationalist, purposely so, in order to basically rally up their audience and sell advertisements and disseminate whatever propaganda they want. They don't seem to have any sort of honest intentions on either side.
And that's why what I was saying earlier when I talked about how I prefer to watch something that I know is biased, I personally would rather watch somebody such as, and I'll give an example from both sides, a Bill O'Reilly or a Rachel Maddow, someone who fully acknowledges their bias and will tell you that this isn't a news show, this is an opinion show. Unlike, for instance, a Chris Matthews or a Brian Williams, who
is Chris Matthews even on anymore?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I haven't watched much of this in a while. I know Bill O'Reilly's not on anymore, so that's an example right there that I'm dating myself with. But these, or even to go way further back, a guy like Dan Rather, what he did for years. These guys pretended like they were journalists, like they were unbiased journalists, but they're not. They never were. This is where I have a problem with NPR. NPR pretends like they are just, our shows are entertainment. Our shows are just informative. Our shows are news. But if you're listening to NPR regularly, and you honestly believe that NPR isn't as far to the left as Bill O'Reilly is to the right, then you're not paying attention. You're not. And that doesn't mean, hey, listen to NPR. I don't care. It's fine. But if you're listening to NPR and you don't think that those people are just as far to the left as Rush Limbaugh is to the right, then you are doing yourself a disservice.
I feel like there's also this kind of false idea out there that a lot of people are very liberal, a lot of people are very conservative. Here's the sides as they're presented.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is really somewhere in the middle, almost like it gives validity to both of those sides, that false dilemma.
To the two tribes that are trying to pull you into their side.
Exactly, and it just kind of pushes things along. It gives credence to something that really isn't true.
And I feel like, this, what I'm about to say may insult some people, and I don't mean it to be insulting, actually, I really don't, but I feel like a lot of people love to say that I'm a moderate. I'm just a moderate. I'm just in the middle.
Exactly.
The middle. And let me say, when I hear somebody say that, and this isn't true in every case.
Is it like the Michigan State thing? We're like, I kind of like both teams.
Yeah, it is in some ways. When I hear that somebody says, if you're, and we're here in Detroit, when I hear that somebody says that, I like both teams for Michigan State, to me, I read that as, you don't care, you're not a football fan, you haven't chosen one because you don't care. And that, to me, when I hear that someone says, I'm just a moderate, I'm just pretty much right in the middle,
they haven't put much thought into
I feel like, you're not paying attention then.
What about
you haven't formed an opinion. And it's okay.
That's why you got to respect Adam, because even though he's wrong, he picked a side.
No, he did. It's like, it's the Wolverine thing, it's a... it's Wolverine and Storm in the first X-Men movie, what if you're fighting for the wrong side? At least I've chosen a side.
Yeah.
is what Storm tells him when he's gonna go run away and hide. And that, I feel like there's some validity to that.
And
what if you're on the wrong side? At least I've chosen a side.
I was going to say, just like Addie's allowed fear to warp his mind, and he's also chosen a side. So
perhaps, but. Okay,
I'm just kidding. Addie.
Project Bluebeam. All right, so is the idea
before we go on?
Okay,
it seems to me like Project Bluebeam is like the mother of all conspiracy theories.
It's
to me like this is what conspiracy
more so
theories,
than the
because
gray
it's the end game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is it seems like this is definitely the end game.
More so than the gray aliens controlling everything.
Well, because all paths lead to this. I mean, it really, for a lot of them to make sense, where is it all going? It has to lead to this. It's like all paths lead to Rome. This is Rome right now.
See, we agreed on something.
I know. I'll definitely I'll save my applause for the end. But
write that down. Write that down.
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
we had one a couple weeks ago. I think,
we did.
Yeah, it's happened. Ed and Adam agreed because I do look back at these notes. So from time, so I'm definitely going to make a paper copy of that at this point. But no, you guys are right though. This has to be the end game, in essence. Even if you don't believe in the specifics of Project Bluebeam, you have to, if you are a believer in these conspiracies, you do have to believe that eventually the end game is martial law leading to a one world government / pulling away of your rights, a dictatorship, in essence, a worldwide dictatorship. And, chaos first that will have to, usher in said dictatorship. One thing I want to touch on, though, because this is one, I feel like even more so than Project Bluebeam, this is something that when you mention, people instantly think, oh, he's a crazy conspiracist. He's a crazy conspiracy theorist. And the thing I'm saying that people say that about is the entire idea of a false flag. Now, do we believe, do people out there believe that there has been false flag attacks, or that the government is capable or would be willing to do false flag attacks to further their own goals? And I don't think everything that's ever happened has been a false flag. And I also, and I'll get into this in a second, I think there's two different kinds of false flags that I feel like people get caught up in those two and end up fighting, and I don't think it matters that much. But what do you guys think? Is this, do people out there believe that their government would never do that?
Well, isn't there a documented false flag where the United States was contemplating carrying out terrorist attacks and then blaming it on the Cubans? Isn't that something that's true?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's Bay of Pigs.
Yeah.
In essence, what was that? A lot of historians believe that the start of the Spanish-American War was a false flag. That either the U.S. perhaps purposely blew up their own ship, or that it blew up on accident and they chose to take that accident and say, this would be a great chance to blame the Spanish and go to that war we've been wanting to have. Well, that's what more historians tend to think. Not that all historians think. So there's still a whole bunch of historians out there that believe that the Spanish blew it up. To make that clear. But
look at events. I mean, and why you would want a false flag. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that these are false flags, but when you have a large traumatic event, what follows is something drastically different. Look at Pearl Harbor and what happened after that. America gets involved in World War II. 9/11. If had 9/11 not happened, I mean, think back, what was that, 14 years ago, 2003, when we went to war in Iraq. You probably couldn't find many people, maybe a few outspoken Hollywood actors who would basically say that we shouldn't be going to war in Iraq. Almost
Donald
everybody.
Trump was one of them, except he did support the war.
I mean, basically the entire country, thinking that it was somehow related to 9/11, essentially was for that. Had that not happened, the climate would have been completely different.
We also had the presentation at the UN too by Colin Powell saying that we have this evidence here supporting the idea that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction when they went in there, conquered Iraq, and there was nothing there.
Exactly. Hindsight, now we know. In fact, there was evidence at the time, but nobody wanted to hear it because it was very unpatriotic to do so, and a lot of dissenting opinion was squashed. But there was no need for it. In fact, it ended up being pretty bad for everybody involved. I mean, there's evidence that maybe we allowed the Japanese to bomb Pearl Harbor because we wanted an end. We wanted it in the war.
And a lot of people, this is something that, and there of course was reason for this, legitimate reasons to some degree, but I sent something to your guys' phones that we will maybe discuss in a little bit. But what happened? We went, Japan bombs Pearl Harbor, right? And what did the U.S. do immediately upon being bombed?
War on Germany.
Yes, we declared war on Germany. We didn't even declare war on Japan right away. We did that later.
But it got all that support and everybody riled up, and oh my God, we're part of this now. We need to get in
right.
there.
It was the boost we needed. The what is it? XYZ affair, correct? Am I? The false flag perpetuated, supposedly. A lot of people believe that, during World War I, Germany sent a message to Mexico saying that if Mexico attacks the United States, they will back them. And that's many, many people believe to this day. My history teacher in high school believed to this day that Britain sent that.
That Britain sent the message to Mexico?
Yes, that Britain sent the message to Mexico, pretending like they were from Germany to get us into the war.
Yeah. To answer your question, I think a lot of people, especially with maybe my political leanings, tend to think that the government is incompetent and, we don't need big government because they're just a bunch of idiots and they are wasteful and they squander. I actually don't completely agree with that. I actually think that most of the people who are in government positions are actually fairly intelligent people. and maybe people part of the military complex are as well. The problem isn't that they're idiots; it's that they're malicious.
Yeah, they're nefarious. Right. Yeah. And it was Mark Twain said that, right? Mark Twain. I'm paraphrasing here, but Mark Twain made the comment and said, "I don't know if the people in our government are, do what they do out of malicious intent or out of ignorance. And quite frankly, I don't know which one's worse." And that's, again, that's paraphrased Mark Twain. That's not the exact quote. I don't have it in front of me, but that was something said a long time ago, basically. Yeah. But I do feel that when you mention the idea of a false flag, people get kind of like, "Oh no, you're crazy. You're crazy." Some top generals went to JFK with the idea of some false flag attacks. That is verified that they wanted to do. JFK said absolutely not. They didn't happen. But it was certainly brought to their attention.
More theory behind, or more evidence behind the theory that the government killed JFK?
Right. Yeah, I mean, so if they're bringing this to the attention of said president and the president's turning it down and then that president wakes up dead one day in 1963, maybe the other presidents don't say no. Or maybe they don't bother to bring it to the president's attention anymore.
Yeah.
That's that. I tend to think that's more likely.
The president's not the most powerful person in the world.
No, I don't. I agree with that. I mean, I don't think a lot of this stuff gets brought to the president's attention. I really don't think that. I don't think that many presidents are really evil. I think they are. A lot of times they're well intentioned. Which, by the way, well intentioned is the opposite of wisdom. People say,
"Well, hell is made with good intentions."
Yeah, I mean, people love to say that somebody's well intentioned, like it's a compliment. But truth is,
it's not a
the opposite of well intentioned is wisdom.
And then basically means they did something bad,
right?
Even though they didn't mean to.
That's all that means. So I don't view these people as I'll be honest with you, and Adam, you may not like this, but to me, the only president that I can name that I truly think was kind of a bit of an evil person and kind of a sociopath was Bill Clinton. I really do believe that, because I do believe that Clinton.
I'm not gonna get on you for that.
I think he's a sociopath. I do not.
He's a moderate too.
I do not. Yes, he was back then. He was anyway, but he was a pragmatist in essence, is what he was. I don't think he's an ideologue at all. Barack Obama, I don't think Barack Obama is evil. I really don't. I think he's an ideologue.
Did I just hear a from Ed?
I don't. I think Bill Clinton was a better president than Barack Obama.
Hold on, wait. What president do you like, Ed?
Recent? Probably none.
Okay.
None in your lifetime?
Yeah, none in my lifetime.
Okay, you know what? That's.
I could almost, I guess, because I was a kid with Reagan, maybe go that way, but I'm not even sure if I'm going to go there.
To me, the one president in my lifetime that I view as completely removed from these New World Order ideas is Ronald Reagan, actually. But I believe that there's a certain degree of naivety.
No, I think there were a lot of people around him that were basically pushing forth the agenda. That he gets a lot of credit, and he maybe was well-intentioned in certain areas, but I think in hindsight, he wasn't as good as a lot of conservatives tend to give him credit for.
Ronald Reagan's an important person to bring up, too, because of one in particular very famous Ronald Reagan speech, which I'm sure you guys have heard, and probably others have heard out there, where he comes right out and says, imagine if there was an alien attack. What would, imagine how fast we would all jump in. And I often wonder if people heard that and said, wow, that's a good idea when it comes to that. But I don't believe that was Ronald Reagan saying that he was on board with this. I think there's a bit of naivety when it comes to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And I think he was really saying it because, they always leave out the last part of that. the last part of those statements that Reagan said, and he said, the next thing Reagan says is, there's already an alien here. The thing that is alien is the constant state of war. And what is more alien for us to all unite against than killing each other and being at war all the time? It's really, that was the crux of what he said. No, maybe it was all just veiled Illuminati messaging. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, Reagan wasn't involved in some degree, but if, to me, in our lifetime, if there was any president that was not part of this, it was Reagan. And a lot of people back that up by saying that by the NWO's plan, George Bush was supposed to win the election in 1980.
But he also had an assassination attempt, too.
He did.
And basically any president who has an assassination attempt very likely is not toting the line that they're supposed to be.
And what did we get from that assassination attempt? We got the Brady Bill, which, whether maybe you're an anti-gun person, and I guess that's fine. I don't know why you would be, but I guess that's fine. But if you are an anti-gun person...
He left.
Adam had to run out and take care of some technical difficulties, which our producer has to do from time to time. But you can't deny that the Brady Bill is a gross violation of people's rights, not just their right to bear arms, but many, many rights. And the things that the Brady Bill has done, the thing it's done to, I'll throw out the term again, to well-intentioned ex-cons and felons, the things it's done to them, the liberty it's taken away from people, the people it's thrown in jail for really silly offenses is insane. To this day, because of the Brady Bill, you can be a former felon, ex-con of a completely non-violent crime, and you get pulled over and your kid left a squirt gun in the back seat, and you're going back to jail for 5 years. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't care who you are. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So, you want to debate, I know the people listening aren't here live with us, but you want to debate the purpose of whether or not people should be able to have AR-15s. Well, that's a debate for a different time or different show, different topic. But if you believe that people trying to make their life better, who have paid their dues and done their time, should get 5 years in jail for having a squirt gun in their backseat, then we're just on a different plane there. There's no, I don't actually even have an argument for you.
And it seems to me that, and maybe people interpret this differently, but I think the founding fathers gave us our right to bear arms to protect ourselves from the government.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not to mention that things like the Brady Bill are completely unconstitutional, regardless. And many of these other things are totally unconstitutional. But the truth is, it doesn't matter, because the Constitution gets broken all the time.
Yeah.
People like me love to bring up the Constitution all the time, but it's worthless. It really is. It's they've trampled it. It's
how many wars have we gone into without congressional approval?
Right. Exactly.
They're just called skirmishes now.
Yeah. They're police actions.
Yeah.
The other thing that, when it comes to Ronald Reagan,
Josh, one thing.
Yes.
I just want to apologize to people out there because we do have our backup running. So the entirety of this episode is recorded in every aspect. But if you are watching us live on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope, or Mixler, like I said, I do apologize for the technical problems that we've been having as far as our internet connection goes tonight. It's been up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Ironic that this is the first time in quite a while that we've had these type of internet.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's, but all I know is that I posted to social media that we would be discussing Project Bluebeam this evening, and almost immediately afterward, we started having major technical difficulties.
But
which is why you haven't heard from Adam much today. People might think that Adam's just annoyed at us crazy libertarians talking, but really he's actually working his butt off.
Well, I mean,
really though, Adam's working his butt off trying to get this together because we're having big time technical difficulties. But you can always go back and listen.
Well,
and if you're not a live viewer, you're listening later. You're not having these problems.
Well, Josh, what we're gonna do is, like I said, this entire episode is backed up. We have it unless the power happens to go out, which it could. I don't see any rain or anything like that in the area right now, but unless power were to go out and everything in here were to shut off, we would still have there would be a backup to this. So what we're going to do is we are going to rebroadcast this episode once again. We'll probably do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, probably around 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock. That way you'll be able to get the entirety of it, and
you can come back to that spot and watch it loop later on.
You can watch the whole episode.
Right.
So
it's
just like I said, it's ironic.
So if you're catching pieces of this on Facebook now, you can switch over to theempiremedia.com, watch us there, or just hopefully just catch us later when you do.
Yes.
Wherever you can. There's numerous places to catch this show, but hopefully the one you're watching wasn't screwed up, and you get your opportunity to catch it. The other profound thing about Ronald Reagan during this is that Mikhail Gorbachev spoke at length later about how he was flabbergasted. He was shocked when Reagan and him first met, and one of the first things Ronald Reagan said to Gorbachev in their meeting was, just think, if the Martians attacked tomorrow, we would have to be allies and we would have to lead the fight together.
So there's a quote I want to read from along these lines from Henry Kissinger.
Okay.
You may have heard this. This often seems to come up around this topic. And, some people will point to, well, maybe it's not specifically this that he's talking to, but it certainly fits the bill. This was after, 91 or 93, there were riots in LA. Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened their very existence. It is then that all the peoples of the world will plead with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted them by their world government.
Mm-hmm. Which, this goes back to the old Benjamin Franklin quote that people get sick of hearing these days. Just the idea that any person that gives up liberty in the name of security deserves neither liberty nor security. And I don't know, that does seem to, how would people willingly give up their rights? Yeah, the world would have to be coming to an end for me to give up my rights. Well,
all right, there you go.
Well, then let's have aliens come down. Now, Adam, I know you don't subscribe to this particular thing especially, but how do you guys feel about this idea that it's being pushed by forms of media for us to accept the idea of aliens? Movies like Independence Day and more and more movies about aliens and TV shows about aliens, the X-Files,
There's more to it than that, I think. So Hollywood actually, they don't have an original idea in their at all anywhere. So they keep pumping out the same thing over and over again. But I think when they do that, they often have an agenda with it. Like you're saying, all the movies that are coming out. Look at Transformers. How many movies have they come out with now? 5? All of them are about some form of alien invasion, War of the Worlds. You could come up with a lot of movies that and it presents the idea of aliens. It almost kind of normalizes this idea of us being invaded by aliens.
I was going to say, isn't Independence Day part of Project Bluebeam?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that
Absolutely.
one of the...
No, I mean, and Bill Clinton, in an interview while President of the United States, referenced the movie Independence Day when they talked about aliens coming down. He said, they asked him, do you believe in aliens? He said, oh, I don't know. I'd like to believe in aliens. And basically, I mean, he goes on to say, he's like, well, that's kind of what the movie Independence Day is about, isn't it? You know, that, hey, we'd all just come together if aliens just attacked. Maybe it'd be better if they did.
Yep.
You know, I mean, those are...
Well, it implants this idea in people's heads, like, yeah, I did see that. And, hey, we all came together and we ended up beating them, so I'm going to buy into whatever's being pushed out there. They're saying, yeah, we got to come together and fight this battle against them, something that's not really existing. And
But that's not any type of... That mentality isn't any type of new thinking. I mean, there's the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Mhm.
And that line of thinking is nothing new. I mean,
well, and that's because they well understand that that's how humans would think. Hence, exactly why they would go for that scenario.
Sure.
No, that's basic Sun Tzu stuff, really. You know?
Yeah. I guess we'll get to that at the very
No,
very
I
end.
mean, and hey, listen,
because
if aliens really do come down, then, well, yeah, I sure as hell hope that the Russians and the U.S. get together and we fight them. But, I kind of like to go with...
there's going to be this whole, okay, aliens are coming down, but Russia, we gotta take care of this. This you and I thing first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would hope that Trump and Putin wouldn't say, like, yeah, all right, come on, let's do this, toe-to-toe. The winner takes the aliens. I mean, I hope they don't do that by all means. But
I don't know, we might be better off. The aliens might get scared off.
yeah, really. I tend to think more on the lines of Mikio Keiko. You guys know who that is, right? The Mikio Keiko, famous astrophysicist. Brilliant man. Top scientist, but he's cool. He's a Asian dude with the white hair.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's cool. You see him on TV a lot because he's a brilliant man. But he's cool. He doesn't talk like a scientist. He talks like a really smart, but also really cool and really funny guy. And he's got a lot of very kind of different takes on things too, because he's actually, for instance, he's a very respected scientist. He's also a devout Christian, actually, and he's Japanese, which is
not common.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, he's American, but of Japanese descent. He's actually born in an internment camp, in a Japanese internment camp.
in the World War II.
Yeah, or was it him or his brother? Well, I want to say it was actually his brother was born in an internment camp. His mom might have been pregnant with him or something while she was in the camp, but that's neither here nor there. Just kind of an interesting part of his story.
You know, was in a Japanese internment camp.
Who?
George Takei.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he or was his family?
He was.
He probably a little kid. Must have been really
The original Naked Time with Sulu.
Yep. Yeah, Naked Time.
Oh
one of the classic Star Wars episodes.
Star Trek
episodes. Not the Naked Now episode of Star Trek Next Generation was nowhere near as good. Just did not quite get there. But Star Trek is another thing they give examples of indoctrinating us with these views. One thing that makes me buy into that just a little bit, perhaps, about that is think about when you were a kid. We're all in our 30s here. Think about when we were kids, and they would ask people if they believed in aliens. Most people then would say no. People used to always say that they didn't believe in aliens. That aliens were stupid. They were crazy. Oh, there's no aliens here. People don't say that anymore. People notice that nothing has really changed.
It shows you the power of the propaganda.
Right. Other than the movies we've watched, the TV shows we've watched, sure, some scientists coming out and saying, no, there's, potentially 1 billion planets in the Milky Way alone that are Earth-like. And, there has been scientists that have said this, but even that's just scientists on the news. Scientists in the New York Times, scientists wherever. We're through nothing that's actually happened directly to people. People now believe in aliens. And why is that? I do too. I did then, though. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm Captain Consistency here, but I've always kind of been a person that kind of believes in aliens. So I think the switch is correct in this case, but why is that?
I don't know. I guess I don't fully agree with people that believe in aliens as much as they do now. I guess I'm under.
Statistically, they do from what they claim, but
Okay.
that's going off the same media that I've been bad mouthing.
It just seems like the culture in our our society's viewpoint on aliens. It's always been there, and the fear of an alien takeover has always been there. Going back to the old War of the Worlds,
Yep, very true.
episodes and everything like that, and even in some of the older, Renaissance type artwork where we've seen, some odd objects up in the sky.
I think way back when, I think more people did believe in aliens, but it seems to me like 80s and 90s, a lot of people didn't, and now in the 2000s, a lot of people do.
It seems
Maybe I'm just running with different circles now. I don't know.
I don't know. To me, it seems like we'd almost see like a spike in it, just because of when you go and you look at that time, or I don't know, maybe was there too much going on in the world? But then again, you go back and look when during the old War of the Worlds stuff was happening. I mean, we still there was World War II happening, and
hell, in the 80s, here in the 80s in America, nothing was going on.
We had the Cold War.
Yeah,
Still
but we were kind
happening.
of getting over it at that point. It was like, all right, it looks like nothing's going to happen with this whole Cold War thing. It looks like this war is never going to turn into a hot war. It's going to stay the Cold War, and they're talking about the Berlin Wall coming down, and U.S. was thriving. I know a bunch of people who are in the military in the 80s, and they're just always kind of like. It's the best time to be. Like I get this veteran pension, and that was the time to be in the military.
Or the time
Who wouldn't want to be in the military if there's no war?
Yeah, I mean it's
or the time right after the Persian Gulf War.
Yeah,
Because there was literally nothing going on. I mean, you had the thing going on in Bosnia, which people thought was
more special ops than anything else. Which the special ops guys, they've never had it easy, but you sign up for that. That's you want that when you're.
Of course, people called a wag the dog
With
occurrence.
yeah,
with Bosnia.
that documentary,
Mm-hmm.
What documentary?
Wag the Dog.
Wasn't that a movie? Yeah.
Yeah, you never seen that?
I just know the title.
Basically, it's a movie of how they basically create all these stories in the media and that aren't true. They essentially just
Kind of like it's. I don't know if they admit that it's loosely based off it, but there's an old book called The Mouse That Roared, and that's it's basically about a tiny country that decides that the only way to fix their economy is to declare war on the United States, so they can then lose a war and get their country rebuilt for them. But one thing that I found strange about Project Bluebeam, about this conspiracy, is that, and not everybody, but a lot of people who are big into the Project Bluebeam conspiracy, a huge part of it at times is contingent upon this idea that aliens are fake. That there are no aliens. The alien thing is BS through and through. And that the government will fake the aliens. Now, I don't necessarily think that just because the government is going to fake an alien attack, potentially fake an alien attack, that means that aliens don't exist. But a lot of people who are big and, people, not just your average YouTube watcher, the guys doing the circuit running around the world talking about Project Bluebeam and other conspiracies, a lot of what they say is contingent upon this idea that there are no aliens. And I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Ed, before you jump in, Bill Cooper, guy who we'd be remiss to not mention him to some degree. Bill Cooper kind of went back. He was one of the first, the government's controlled by aliens guys, and then towards the end of his life kind of went back on no, I think the alien thing's BS to some degree, but he was kind of not totally clear about that.
I think there actually is kind of a part of the lie is that there's an element of truth in it. Like going back to the whole like the biblical narrative, what are the Elohim? What are the Nephilim? Mm-hmm. Are these angels technically aliens, or they're not of this world?
Right.
So in a way, it's almost kind of telling the truth that there actually is an alien invasion. It's just not as presented.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of people say that, was Jesus an alien? That's,
according to the Bible, he kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, born of Earth, so perhaps not alien DNA, maybe.
For me, I think I take a very simplistic path with aliens, and it's the universe is a big place.
Sure.
And I think that you have to be an incredibly naive person to think that human beings are the only intelligent species in this vast, thing that we call the universe.
I agree 110%.
So
yeah.
I just, to me, it seems like it's unfathomable to think that we're the only ones in here.
I always say, I've been saying this for years and years and years. I believe in aliens for the same reason I believe in God. And that's it to me. Anybody that walks outside at night and looks up at all those stars and thinks that was all put there just for us has achieved a level of narcissism and arrogance that no human being has any right to achieve. I just don't get it.
Yeah, there are
I don't get it. There are.
That.
I mean, I view personally, and I'm not criticizing any individual out there, but I view atheism as an extremely narcissistic viewpoint. To me, you're atheist because you believe there couldn't possibly be something out there better than you.
No,
and I know there's atheists listening going, "Oh, that's bullshit." That's they're throwing their shit right now. And they're going nuts. But that's. I'm sorry, I do. And that's same with, to me, you walk outside, you look up at all those stars. It's like little Anakin in Phantom Menace. Do they all have a system of planets? I mean, if you don't look up at that and be amazed and think that, okay, so we only need the one sun to power our planet, yet there's all those stars out there and not one other thing growing out there somewhere, not another chipmunk, not another person, not another alien,
another fish or ant or whatever,
amoeba, anything, nothing. Because if you believe that there's an amoeba out there, then you believe that there's potential for life.
And scientists have already come out and said that they've found other Earth-like planets out there. And if there are other Earth-like planets out there, then you have to assume that...
According to the Kepler satellites, a billion with a B, in the Milky Way alone.
Yeah, you have to assume that there is something living, whether intelligent or not,
now
is on those planets.
Going back to what I was originally bringing up Miki Okeku for, is basically what he says is, they say, are there aliens? He says, well, I tend to think there are because, like we just said, the billion planets that are Earth-like in our solar system alone. But he says, listen, we are nowhere near being able to get to those areas technologically at this point. So he says, listen, if there's aliens, I hope there are. If there's aliens and they ever come here, I have a feeling they would come here and be benevolent. This is his words, not mine, and I'm paraphrasing. And he says, I feel like they'd probably be nice if they showed up here. But if they showed up here and they planned on going to war, and this is a quote from him, it'll be like Godzilla versus Bambi. Like, we don't have a chance. There's not a snowball's chance in hell of us defeating these aliens if they come down. Because if they've achieved that technology to be able to get here, then they got stuff that'll make a hydrogen bomb, look like a dart.
We've got to figure the vice versa is also true. If humans ever develop the technology to
Mhm.
go to other planets, then you have to assume that
Yeah, it'd be the same thing.
if humans can get to another
Yeah.
planet and then somebody else can't, then
then
I think that
we'd be finding our equivalent to a caveman or
you,
monkeys.
you
or,
know what though? I think the new version of War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise one, they bring up an interesting factor in all of that is, these aliens coming down, harvesting humans, and all of a sudden, what ends up taking them down is, the diseases that humans carry, and that invading another organic life form. And
and that's true from the book. That's how they.
Oh, that was in the old. Okay.
Yeah, in the original book.
See, I never.
That's how they're defeated. They come down, they kick our ass, and then they die of a virus. Because I always thought that was silly, to be honest with you.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. And in fact, I didn't think it was silly in the book because of what year the book was written.
1920.
Yeah, but in the movie, I thought, like, wow, of all the things to keep true to a book, of all the things Hollywood's changed from books over the years, of all the things to keep true, that's something to me they should have changed, because I don't see somebody that intelligent, that technologically advanced, not seeing that contingency.
I like the subtle aspect of, were they actually aliens? Because they were just underground here for a long time.
Right.
At least in the movie.
That's true.
We assume they're aliens, and we say they're aliens, and it's an alien invasion, but we never see them come from somewhere else.
Well, I guess in the new movie, I don't know. Again, like I said, I never read the old book, but they came through. They came down from lightning.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right though, Ed. I mean, I guess.
And who directed that? Steven Spielberg. How many alien movies has he made? One of the leading Hollywood
did Steven
propagandists.
Spielberg do the new one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They like to put subtle little hints like that.
No, but you know what though? That's a good point. You never actually see where they come from, other than the lightning coming down, which lightning would think is part of
terrestrial to some degree.
Yes, it's part of the lightning originates from the Earth's atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that is coming from outer space, but like I said,
I mean, and kind of like riding off this Mickey Okeku idea that we wouldn't stand a chance against aliens coming down. Would that be something that the government would try to do if there was a Project Bluebeam-esque plan in place, that they would say, okay, we cannot possibly stand toe-to-toe with them, so we have to do what they say, but really it's not them we're listening to, it's the government we're listening to. It's a one world government. They would in essence pretend like they're the aliens.
Yeah.
That's I guess a basic idea. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, and this sounds like kind of like an end question, doesn't have to be the end of the show exactly right now necessarily, but one thing to me that I thought was not totally clear about the Project Bluebeam, and because there's different variations of it, is they talk a lot about false flag alien invasion. They talk a lot about false flag, second coming of Christ, or something similar. What's more likely to you guys? The alien thing, the religion thing, or is it supposed to be a mix of both? Because I don't really quite understand the mix of both thing. So I mean, what do you guys? What seems like the better play?
I think it all goes hand in hand. I think it all ties together. It's to, as stated, it's to achieve the New World Order, the one world government, the one world religion, and by unifying everybody, essentially everybody's going to be ascribing to this way of life under the government.
So, Ed, in other words, the religion thing is the hook to get them to unify, and then the alien invasion is something to unify against.
Yes.
Is the process in essence?
Yes. Yeah. So that final synthesis of.
Okay.
I can agree with that premise. I think that
No, that lends a little bit more. That makes a little more sense to me because I'm thinking like, I hear some people talking Project Bluebeam. I hear them saying aliens. I hear some people talking Project Bluebeam. I hear them say religion, and I'm like, well, kind of pick one. But you make a good point.
I think you could probably have. Actually, no, you can't. I think you need all of it in order for, because the thing is, if you unify against the aliens without the religious aspect to it, after the aliens have been defeated, what's to stop people from going back to their old ways?
Yeah.
Take, for instance, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
9/11 happened in the United States. Everybody was unified. Give it however so many
It's
years.
temporary.
Yeah, however so many years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say that we have never been, more divided. Now,
Sure.
and the same thing goes for Project Bluebeam as well. Like you were saying, Ed, we have the religious aspect to it, which is if everybody is brought together under one God, then in large part you won't have to worry about a division amongst people after the aliens have been, the quote unquote aliens have been defeated, because what's to be divided about?
Yeah. I mean, say hypothetically, the invasion is staged. We basically submit to them. Their leader comes out and says, hey, we're actually, your history, you've been lied to. We are actually your creators, and we've come back, and I am your leader, and your religions are somewhat wrong. This is actually, let me show you the true way. Submit to me and worship me, and this is the way to live. And we're going to have a lot of people thinking, wow, well, A, we're screwed. B, we're in end times. This is it. Let's do it. Let's hop on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because also you'll have to, because you won't really have a choice. But.
So you want to, so this is simultaneously a destruction of our past history and of all the major religions, yet at the same time it is a fulfillment of these religions as well.
False fulfillment. Yes.
Yes, false fulfillment of these religions.
Yes.
As well. That this will be the second coming for the Christians. It will be the first coming for the Jews. It will be the end times for the Muslims. It will be the path to nirvana for the Buddhists. It will be all of these things.
What's weird though is, I guess in Christianity, and again, I'm not a Christian scholar. Josh, you're probably much more versed in it than I am.
Definitely wouldn't call myself a Christian scholar. I've had a lot of Catholic schooling.
But isn't Project Bluebeam in some way fulfilling prophecy
of the Antichrist?
Exactly.
And of the Antichrist.
Absolutely.
So,
except that people won't realize that because they don't actually read the Bible. They will think it's the second coming of Jesus.
But even that is fulfillment of biblical prophecy, because it tells you in the book of Revelations, in the Bible, it tells you that most people will fall for it.
Yes.
That many will.
They don't. It doesn't go into detail like exactly how it will happen. Mm-hmm. Just that there will be an Antichrist. People will fall for it. So if something like this were to happen,
similar at the end of the Quran as well.
Yeah. So if something like this were to happen, then would we actually be seeing Jesus come?
Perhaps afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how long it lasts.
God, people be fucked up then.
Oh yeah, big time. This is crazy.
Well, and you'll probably need your mark in order to be a world citizen.
And I mean, and this brings up, is this the fake second of Christ? They've talked about the idea of a fake rapture, which rapture's a complicated thing, even in the course of religion. When it comes to the rapture, not a whole lot of Christians even believe that. A lot of Christians say, no, a rapture doesn't mean that a bunch of people are going to get sucked up to heaven and then, that's for. I mean, the Catholics definitely don't believe that. A lot of other, the Episcopalians don't believe that.
Is this really only a crazy Kirk Cameron thing?
Partially, but I mean, there are references to it in the Bible, but the rapture is debated heavily amongst Christians, and it's laughed at exclusively by atheists. I mean, people who aren't Christians just view the rapture as like, how stupid are you people? Really, that's what the atheists basically look at that and say, what a ludicrous idea. Where and some Christians honestly do as well. Some very devout Christians even kind of think that. So that's kind of a strange thing. But if that were to happen, I think a lot more people would get on board with this idea that, oh wow, that part was true. And so who would you fake rapture? Would the government fake rapture the people who they know are going to be problems? Would they fake rapture podcast hosts who are talking about Project Bluebeam? They fake rapture would they basically just go out and kill the super devout Christians and say, oh yeah, well, you know how devout they were, because those are the people that could potentially be a huge threat to them?
Kind of like in the movie The Island.
Mm-hmm.
You seen that? You win your trip to paradise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen that movie.
Well, and it's in essence, to throw it into something super mainstream, super pop culture, the Captain America Civil War movie. They talk about, basically it has a bit of a Minority Report flair to it, where basically they're gonna see the threats before they happen, and they're going to eliminate them.
Yeah. That's another the Marvel movies, aliens coming to save the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The theme gets pushed even more.
No, the aliens come to destroy the world, but then different aliens stop it, and not all the Avengers are aliens, but Thor is, though, technically.
DC with Superman.
Yeah.
Superman was an alien coming down to...
The prize of the DC universe is an alien. Our most recognized superhero here in the United States, in the world, is Superman, an alien. DC is huge in their aliens, for sure.
Who also fights aliens as well.
Yeah, for sure.
At some point.
It's truth, justice, and the American way. From Krypton. Have you guys, kind of sidestepping here a little bit, you guys seen any of these things with some people are saying there are potential tests of Project Bluebeam, the floating cities over China?
I've heard about it.
Floating cities over Peru, over Africa, over some of these other areas. They have some footage of this stuff. They have legitimate footage of some of these things, and they always seem to take place in areas where you don't think many people would have cell phones. You don't think many people would have smartphones. But the truth is, even in Nigeria and, rural parts of China, some people do have cell phones still.
There's a large UFO sighted or spotted over Mexico City, I want to say like 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, and these are there's some very, very strange footage. When they try to write it off as, no, it's a strange mirror image, but you look up and you see, it looks like a floating city, skyscrapers, and everything. There's reports of one. This one does not have the video footage, but wide reports over Africa of a city that they said had beautiful skyscrapers, tarred streets, and cars driving by that they could hear. And this is coming from an area that does not have tarred paved streets or cars, where that's not like the norm for them. But there's definitely some strange stuff, and I wonder, is this HARP or CERN or NASA or somebody testing something here, or is it really just a freak of nature? There's also some crazy footage out there of lines drawn through the sky. where it literally looks like half the sky is perhaps a projection and the other half is not. Even to the point where you can see a plane flying on one side and then it disappears when it crosses the line, much like a true hologram, which holograms do exist now. It's like a true hologram where you can kind of see the lines around it.
Hey, Josh, I found some footage of the floating city, so I can go ahead and play that over, through video. So we'll go ahead and play that right now. It looks like it's from some Chinese news broadcast or something.
Yeah, this
like
was
that.
definitely shown on the news in China and actually worldwide. Although
it's clearly just a dark cloud. I'm sure.
Right, I'll rewind it a little bit, but here we go. I mean, there's. And I'm sure that David Voss or Vos.
October 7th, 2015 is.
And then there's another wide angle or a pulled back shot of it.
It's like Asgard. Odin and Thor hanging out up there.
But
no, I mean it's very, very strange. There's a lot of people tried to write it off as different things. I don't know what to think of it, honestly. I mean it's
interesting. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know that it's proof of Project Bluebeam necessarily, but it's definitely interesting.
It could be. So here's another one. Floating city over California, China, and the UK. I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and play all of these. People can go and look at this. Just go type in "floating city Project Bluebeam" on Google, and you'll find stuff about this. So it's not like this is obscure stuff or anything like that.
China, Nigeria, other parts of Africa, and Peru have all had numerous sightings of things such as this.
But yeah, I mean, interesting.
So I guess the question is, and if somebody else has something to add to this, please do. But I guess the question is, what does this all mean? Where does this take us? If there's any legitimacy to any of this, what exactly does this mean for society? For what would this mean for society? What does it mean now? What would it mean then? What exactly does this tell us
about
our current state, about our potential state in the future, about anything really? I mean, any thoughts on?
Is this our closing here?
It's getting to be, sure, if we want it to be.
Sure, all right.
I mean, but if you got something else to add, I don't want to cut you off.
No. Ed, go ahead.
I mean, obviously, I subscribe to this. I think it is something that is going to happen. I think it's going to happen in our lifetime, most likely. I don't think the details of Project Bluebeam are all exactly as laid out. It's quite possible certain things have been leaked, maybe even to itself as a false flag to make people think how it's going to happen is different than what it is. But the only thing I'm certain of is that there will be a fake alien invasion, at least that aspect of it. For me, anyways, as I've explained earlier, I think it fits perfectly with the biblical narrative and makes complete sense as to why it would happen. Might happen tomorrow. I could see it not happening for quite some time too. I don't know everything that's going on, but it's if I look up one day and I see a flying saucer in the sky, it's going to be, wow, this is finally it. This is him. And
So
let's see how people react.
when you look up and see a flying saucer, are you instantly going to think fake from the government, or are you going to?
Yes, instantly. It'll be, holy shit, this is actually happening.
I mean, I know it's impossible to tell, what you'll think then.
But it's like, oh my, it'll probably be like, wow, this really is realistic. Like, this is like, I can see why people would believe this.
Do you know where I do side with you here, Ed, is that this idea that I believe there are forces at work that want to take over the world and to form a one world government and to have all the power for themselves and remove our liberty. And as crazy as this particular conspiracy theory sounds, it seems at the same time to be the most logical way to get around this idea of how do you make it work? How do you ignite the martial law leading to dictatorship and one world government? How do you get back to this idea where people have no rights? This makes a whole lot more sense than anything else I can think of.
And, maybe other people will, there are other ideas, I suppose. They could continue on with basically, every country is just going to get in debt and war, and people are going to slowly lose their liberties, and we're going to start a third world war and maybe launch a few nukes and chemical weapons and destroy a large portion of the population. And then, everybody's going to say, hey, white flag, we'll take your world government, save us. I think that all those things may happen along with it, and this just might be the icing on the cake. But yeah, really, how do you finish that synthesis of, how do you get to that final step? And maybe they could gradually get it from here, but it seems like a way to really finish the job.
I'm sorry. I was just reading some of the comments on this video, and this one guy wrote, "God should patch this in the next update."
Gotta love the simulation theory reference.
You know what? And that's what I was just gonna say, Josh. Is if anything, I think that this might support these floating cities simulation theory.
Mm-hmm. A glitch
than anything else. I
agree.
I mean,
we've talked about a lot of conspiracy theories on this,
especially
podcast.
Today.
But I mean, if you're going to subscribe to any certain number of them, they almost kind of don't make sense without something like this. Like, without any sort of end goal to get there, they're just kind of just random, meaningless.
Right. How is the NWO supposedly going to take all this power without something along?
Josh, what did I tell you before the show tonight about Ed?
That he would be very much on board with this.
Would be very much on board with this. I said this is Ed's gonna be all into this, and I feared that was gonna be the case. But and you could probably guess where I'm going at with this one. I can't believe. I mean, do I think that people want to rule the world? Yes, I do. It just seems like this one is more so based on fear than anything else. Fear and overreach. Sorry, go ahead.
The government has some of that technology, though. I mean,
they have a lot of it.
They've used it.
What they don't have, it is verified that they are working towards it.
Hey, you know what?
Doesn't mean they're going to use it.
If tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, something like this were to happen, then
if a huge alien structure pops up over Detroit tomorrow, Adam, are you going to be more prone to think false flag government, or are you going to think the aliens are here?
I'm going to think the aliens are here.
Okay.
Probably. Which may...
I'll be honest with you guys. I really appreciate that Adam says one thing and Ed says the other thing. I'm going to ask myself that same question. I have no effing clue. I have no clue which one I'm going to think.
Because as much as
I think I'm going to be... I know I'll be super skeptical of either, but I don't know. I really don't know what I will think.
And you know why I think this if it happens, why it'll succeed. Because even though there are people like me sitting here saying, oh yeah, I'm going to think it's a false flag, if you actually have this gigantic ship floating ahead up above, and somehow you're getting these thoughts beamed into your head, it's going to be really hard to tell yourself this is fake.
So you're in the middle on this.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I am. Yeah, absolutely. I am.
Were you just getting on those people earlier?
Yes, I am, and that's why I'm saying I'm actually
pick a side, son.
Pick a side.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I'm actually ashamed of this opinion. It's ignorance that I stick behind my other opinion that it's ignorance that leads to that, and it's ignorance leading me to this very thing too. I know I'll be skeptical because I'm a skeptic by nature, but I don't know. And then there's this thing that you and I have kind of talked about this in the past, on and off air, but there's this idea that just because this thing has been perpetuated by somebody doesn't necessarily mean that the choice of going with their end game is the worst choice in a series of bad choices.
Yeah, you could actually, in theory, make the argument that a New World Order, one world government, I could certainly see the argument how it could be a good thing. It's just the deprivation of all of your liberties and the way it'll actually turn out won't be a good thing.
I know Kyle, when he's here, doing these shows with us, I know he's always the
Mr.
one.
Illuminati.
He's always one to ask to why does it always have to be bad?
Right. No, he is.
And I think he would be asking that same question if he was here tonight, is why does it always have to be bad? Why can't it be a positive thing?
I'll be the first one to say a one world government that is transparent from the start and centers around the liberty of all citizens of Earth, I'm not opposed to, but no one's ever brought up that conspiracy. There's nobody out there talking about how they secretly want to pop up out of nowhere, hold elections, and
because
and then honor the Bill of Rights.
Because you know what, in some aspect too, Josh, is I don't think it's fun to think that way, because I think in some ways it's fun to, and don't take offense to this, Ed. I think it's fun to think in movie sense.
Yeah, but if what I just said was true, if what I just said, then they by definition would have to not be secretive about it. So
I get your point.
If they're being secretive, then they are nefarious by nature. Then they are well intentioned.
And if
they're
well intentioned, then they're still wrong.
Well, I think the silver lining is that if this does happen, well, first off, it'll be realization, oh my God, I was right. That means I'm probably right a lot of things. Crap, that's awfully depressing. but also, it really, there actually is one more synthesis, isn't there? I mean, it might take some time before it happens, but the real second coming would be Jesus and the other aliens or whoever come in, probably far technologically superior to these aliens, and basically fight a war and destroy them. And the New World Order kind of did all the work, and that real final synthesis is actually, bringing in the kingdom of heaven.
So would that be the one world government then?
Perhaps that's what would destroy
the one that you don't want to think about.
Yeah. Perhaps. I mean, that's.
Well, I feel like this is one of these deep issues episodes. They're not all like this, but some are. I feel like this is one of those deep issues episodes where we left you with more questions than answers. But that happens from time to time. I hope that it was informative, and it is time to move on to decide. Well, we don't decide what our next Deep Issues cast. Only Pumpkin can decide what our next Deep Issues cast will be. We'll reach into the evil, sadistic Luciferian Pumpkin
Pumpkin
and
says this one.
he will tell us.
We need to get an owl in here too.
Oh no owls.
No owls.
I'll get the creeps big time. I have the creeps anyway after I leave this.
Who doesn't like owls?
Oh, I get it. All right.
I'm going to get an owl. I'm going to find an owl and put it. We have to get an owl.
All right, that's because you're going to start worshiping Minerva. But Ed has selected our next Deep Issues
Cremation
show.
of Care. That's what we're going to do next week, right?
No, we're not doing
Or
it
2 weeks, because we're not going to be on next week.
We are not going to be on next week. That is true. But Ed has selected it from the pumpkin, from not from the pumpkin, from Pumpkin, and Adam is going to read what our next Deep Issues cast will be.
All right, the next Deep Issues cast, which will be on. Let me bring up the calendar here. Let's see, we're at the 11th. Happy birthday, by the way, to my brother Eric.
Yes.
Will be August 8th.
August 8th.
August 8th, which will carry the deep issues of. Wow. It's kind of scary.
What is it?
The next Deep Issues cast will be MK Ultra.
Ooh. And I had a whole list of MK Ultra stuff to talk about tonight in relation to this, and we did not really get to it.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is going to be a good one. MK Ultra, August 8th. We will be off next week, but you can tune in 2 weeks from today for our regular XCast programming. And
Hold on, Jack. Stretch it out a little bit more because I get the music queued up here.
oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, one thing I should mention that we were remiss is we usually somehow find a way to make a Ghostbusters reference, and in Ghostbusters 2, they do reference an idea that relates to Project Bluebeam. They actually accuse the Ghostbusters of having holographic false flags in the first Ghostbusters to tie in this whole thing. So I do feel like that was something that we should have mentioned, because I do like bringing Ghostbusters into it, especially since Dan Aykroyd really actually does like to throw stuff like that in, because he's a believer in many of these conspiracy theories, and definitely a big believer in aliens and the paranormal. But next week, we will be off. 2 weeks from today, we will be back with our regular XCast programming, and if you're a Deep Issues fan, a Deep Issues fanatic like we here all are, the next time you can see the three of us together will be on August 8th, where we will discuss MK Ultra.
Or mind control.
But maybe you already knew that because the government told you.
Are we off?
We are off.
Oh, okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.